centuries, some of the smartest people looking at the natural world were totally stumped by a huge puzzle about life on Earth, a paradox that was hiding in plain sight, really. It took Charles Darwin to finally put the pieces together, and his solution? Well, it changed biology forever. And it all kicked off by tackling one single profound question.
And that really is the central question, isn't it? I mean, just look around you. There's this incredible, almost bewildering variety of living things. But at the same time, if you look closely, you start to see this deep underlying unity that connects all of them. So how can both of those things be true? So rewind about 150 years, and you've got Charles Darwin staring this very contradiction right in the face. He saw that, yeah, organisms are remarkably well suited to their specific environments, but they also shared a ton of fundamental traits with other completely different organisms. It was this strange paradox, this mix of unity and diversity that he just had to explain.
So, the crucial thing to get here is that Darwin's famous book, On the Origin of Species, wasn't just some big catalog of animals and plants. No, it was a massive, comprehensive argument designed to solve this exact puzzle. It offered a framework to finally explain both the similarities and the differences we see across the entire living world.
Now, Darwin wasn't just working in a vacuum, right? To really get why his breakthrough is such a big deal, we have to understand that he was building on centuries of thought. He was basically connecting the dots that other thinkers had already put on the board.
You can really see how the thinking shifted over time. I mean, it started way back with Aristotle's idea of a fixed, unchanging ladder of life, where everything had its place and that was that. Then you get thinkers like Linnaeus who start grouping organisms, noticing these patterns and relationships. Then Hutton and Malthus come along and introduce these game-changing ideas of deep geological time and the struggle for resources. By the time Lamarck suggests that life actually changes over generations, well, the stage was pretty much set for Darwin.
And that is the key. The idea that life evolved was kind of floating around already. Darwin's genius was in providing a clear, logical, and evidence-based mechanism for how it happens. He's the one who connected all those dots by giving us the how. So what was this revolutionary mechanism? At its heart, it really boils down to two core concepts that work together to explain all of life's incredible diversity, all of it stemming from a shared unity.
First up, the big idea: descent with modification. It's one of those concepts that's so powerful because it's actually pretty simple. All it means is that the species we see around us today are the modified descendants of older ancestral species. The descent part, that explains the unity, the shared traits passed down from a common ancestor. And the modification part, well, that explains the diversity, all the changes that pile up over eons. But what's actually causing the modification? What's the engine driving all this change? Darwin's answer was this elegant process he called natural selection. This is the mechanism, the engine, that filters traits from one generation to the next.
What makes natural selection so brilliant is its simple, undeniable logic. It happens in 4 steps you can see in nature. First, you have variation. In any population, no 2 individuals are exactly the same. Second, those variations can be passed down. They're heritable. Third, way more offspring are born than can possibly survive, which creates competition. And that leads to the final piece. The individuals who happen to have traits that give them a little edge in their environment are more likely to survive, reproduce, and pass on those winning traits. Do that for generations, and the whole population starts to shift.
Darwin saw this playing out right in front of him with the finches in the Galapagos Islands. He noticed that finches on different islands had totally different beak shapes, each one perfectly suited for the local food. He realized that, hey, in any group of finches, the ones with slightly better beaks for cracking seeds or nabbing insects would just do better. They'd survive, have more kids, and pass on those useful beaks. It's a perfect example of how the environment itself does the selecting. Now, of course, an idea this huge needs a mountain of evidence to back it up. And Darwin delivered. He pulled from all these different lines of evidence to show that descent with modification wasn't just a cool idea, it was a reality.
One of his cleverest arguments started with something people already knew really well: artificial selection. The logic is so simple. If we humans can cause such dramatic changes in dogs or pigeons just by choosing which ones get to breed, why couldn't nature do the same thing, just on a much, much grander timescale? The only real difference is who's doing the selecting.
And just look at this. It's an absolutely incredible example. Cabbage, Brussels sprouts, kale, broccoli, they all look completely different, right?
But believe it or not, they all come from a single species of wild mustard. Farmers just selected for different things over and over. Bigger leaves gave us kale. Tight flower buds gave us broccoli. It just shows you how much change is possible.
Beyond what we can do, the fossil record gives us a timeline of change. Take the elephant family. We can literally trace their lineage back over 40 million years, watching in the rock record as they changed and diversified. And the craziest part? Modern genetics confirms their closest living relatives are manatees and hyraxes. They all shared a common ancestor about 60 million years ago. Wild, right?
But maybe the most elegant evidence of all is in anatomy itself. See, evolution isn't an engineer creating perfect designs from scratch. It's more like a tinkerer, working with whatever parts are already lying around. It repurposes existing structures for new functions, and this concept has a name: homology.
Okay, check out the forelimbs of a human, a bat, and a whale. I mean, they're used for completely different things: grasping, flying, swimming. But if you look at the bones, they are all built from the exact same blueprint. One bone, two bones, lots of little bones, then digits. Why? Because all three of us inherited that basic blueprint from a common mammalian ancestor. That is homology.
Now, it is super important not to get this mixed up with something else called analogy. Homology is all about a shared origin, like the bat wing and the human arm. Analogy, on the other hand, is about a shared function but from a different origin. A perfect example is a bird's wing and an insect's wing. They both do the same job, flight, but they are built in completely different ways. That's what we call convergent evolution.
All right, let's take a minute to address one of the biggest, most persistent misconceptions about this whole topic. I guarantee you've heard this one before.
Yeah, that phrase, well, evolution is just a theory. This whole idea comes from a pretty big misunderstanding of what the word theory actually means when we're talking about science. It doesn't mean a guess, or a hunch, or some random idea. See, in science, a theory is the absolute gold standard. It's a huge, well-supported explanation for why things in the natural world are the way they are. It's backed up by mountains of evidence from tons of different fields, things like the theory of gravity, or cell theory, and the theory of evolution. These are our best, most robust explanations for how the universe works. And let's be super clear about this. Evolution by natural selection is the fundamental, organizing principle of all modern biology, period. It explains everything from how bacteria become resistant to our antibiotics, to the very bone structures we were just looking at. It's the framework that finally makes sense of that great paradox, life's incredible unity and its stunning diversity.
So this isn't just about dusty old fossils or history books. Evolution is happening all the time, all around us, which leaves us with a final thought to chew on. If this process is always at work, where can we actually see it happening today, shaping the world right now?